Okay, so today we are actually going to do lesson B where we actually learn a little bit more about the science ACT test. So last time you took a practice test and hopefully you got your scores back. Hopefully you also kind of learned a little bit about what to expect from the ACT by looking at that document. You have that PDF now. It is yours to keep, and you can look at it anytime you want, and you can practice anytime you want with it. So now we're actually going to be talking a little bit about some strategies and doing some practice. So the very first thing we want to talk about is understanding the test of the science ACT. So we have a little thinking cap here. And so this is a question for you. It said you entered a contract with travel agency. You want a trip for four to any country in the world. Parents have given you permission for you and your three best friends to go on your own. Okay. Together, you and your friend need to decide where you want to go. What would be some of the first steps you take in preparing your journey? And so, as you think about this activity, there's lots of information that you need to gather. And some of the most basic ones would be like, well, what countries are we interested in going? How long do we want to stay? What kind of thing do we want to see? What kind of things do we want to do? There are lots of information that you collect before you even try to plan out the trip that you and your friends want. Well, the same thing happened on the ACT. There's lots of information you need to get before you even attempt to take the ACT. You really need to understand the landscape of the test before you try it. If you walk in there blind without trying anything, you're not going to do well on the ACT. Okay. Or you're not going to do as well you could have done. Okay. And luckily for you, you're here with me and we're doing this activity, we're doing this lesson, we're doing this together. Okay. And so the very first part that we need to understand about the ACT is understanding the test itself. We need to get some basic facts. Okay. So the same thing we're going to do for science cert and ACT. We're going to learn as much as we can about the test itself first. Then we can do some practice and get some strategies to do better later. So you have a digital worksheet that we're going to ask you guys to complete. Okay? And this is what it looks. Well, no, I can't do that. So you're going to click on that link, and it is going to give you some stuff. So every time you see this yellow box that says "Take note" or "Answer here," that is where we want you guys to go to that digital worksheet and start filling in some information. So the landscape of the test. The science ACT had 40 questions, and you guys saw that on lesson A. It's related to about 6 to 7 passages. Passages are chunks of questions about a particular topic. So 6 or 7 passages in which you must answer all those questions in 35 minutes. Okay. This gives you, if you do the math on there, this gives you approximately 5 minutes to read each passage and answer 5 to 7 questions afterwards. Now, that might sound impossible. How do we do that? There are lots of strategies involved. If you do break down the math even more, that gives you about 53 seconds per question. Again, you have to read the information, you have to read the question, you have to read the answer option, and make your decision all within 53 seconds. Again, there are strategies on how to do this. Okay. And that's what we need to understand. That's what we need to practice as well. Okay, so in your worksheet, make sure you recorded some of that information there. Okay. All right. So first, you know about the ACT. Hopefully, by the end of this lesson, we're going to know which question you can answer easily, and that's really important. Which question require an educated guess? Which question you can skip altogether? When to read the text in detail, take time reading, and when to skim the text for correct answers. Okay, these are all strategies to help you answer these questions as fast as possible. Okay, so remember, let's see if I can move my picture up here so you guys can see a little better. Remember that each question is worth roughly 1 point. Okay, I think it's a 0.86 conversion rate for a raw score. Each question is worth roughly 1 point. Okay, so 46 questions, you can get up, or 40 questions, you can get up to a 36 score. So roughly 1 point a question. If you spend 5 minutes on one hard question, you could have answered 5 easy ones in that time and got a better score. Okay, so answering one hard question improved your score by 1 point. Instead, you can answer 5 easy questions and get 5 points, and are easier. You got the actual point. The hard question you could spend 5 minutes on and still get it wrong, right? The easy question, you spend less time. You can answer 5 of them in the same amount of time and actually get 5 points. Okay. So it's really important to choose which question we're going to go fast on, which question are we going to skip entirely, and which question that we are going to narrow down the choices and make an educated guess towards. Okay. If you make an educated guess by narrowing down, there's a good chance you'll get the question right. You'll get down to a 50-50 choice, or even maybe a 30-30, 33% choice. That's better than a 25% guess. Okay. Now, oftentimes you'll go with your gut, and oftentimes your gut is correct. Okay. Go next slide here. All right. So we're going to look back at the ACT or the search score that we did before. And on your digital worksheet, I want you to think about this. I want you to reflect. Based on what did you learn about the ACT when you took the practice one? And then what would you do differently if I were to give you that if I give you that exact same test today at 35 minutes, what would you do differently on there? Okay. So I want you to reflect for a couple minutes. You can pause this video, pause it right now, and then take a couple minutes, go to that worksheet, and just let me know what do you think about the ACT or the CERT, and learning from your mistakes. What would you do differently? Okay. And if you say things like "I would study," "I would prepare," this is what we're doing. This is the study and this is the preparation for that ACT. So pause the video if you need to, and go ahead and reflect. Hopefully you did a good little reflection. Today we're going to learn about the 3-step method for science passages. We're going to start off very generic, then we're going to specify a little bit more later when we talk about specific passages. So the 3-step method is a good method. It's data driven. It is supported by people. We actually like this method. And the idea behind the 3-step method is to keep you from wasting time. Okay, this is a timed test. This is not a content test. This is not take your time. If you can beat the clock, you can beat the ACT. Okay. So this is to keep you from wasting time reading material you don't need to read, wasting time on spending too much time on hard questions. So the following is a basic 3-step method. We're going to learn more about each type of question on the ACT. There are different variations of this 3-step method that we're going to talk about. Okay. So 3-step method, again, take notes on your digital worksheet. So method number 1 is to read the introductory information. Every passage will have some introductory information. It could be one sentence, it could be one paragraph, but that's all it is, okay? It's not going to be a page of information. Just read the introductory information really quick, okay? So the introduction tells you about the passage itself. It tends to give you vocabulary. It might be necessary to read for answer to the questions anyways. And since it's only 1 to 4 sentences long, reading it is a good use of your time. You can get that done pretty quick, okay? So read the introduction, step number 1. We do encourage you to do that. Step number 2 is asking you to go straight to the question. It's not asking you to read everything else, okay? Read the introduction, and then start going to the question. Step number 2 is to start answering the easy question. The easy question only address things like one experiment, one viewpoint, one table, one figure. Some of the easy questions can even be answered in just the introduction that you just read. Okay, you're like, oh, I know that one. So when you see a question that says, according to table 1, that's an easy question. Okay. If you see something that says, according to table 1 and 2, that is going to be a little bit of a harder question. Okay. Step 3, answer the harder question. Harder question address more than one experiment, viewpoint, table, or figure. Here's the reason why we do not encourage you to read everything and then start answering questions. Because you're going to have to read it again when you answer the question. So there's no point in reading everything, reading question number 1, and having to read it again. you just wasted time reading it twice. Okay, read the introduction, get some information, look at the first couple of questions, then read what you need to read. Okay, you don't want to read it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. There might be 5 questions about these paragraphs. You don't need to read it 5 times. You're going to waste your time reading. Okay, so the less reading we can do, the better. Sometimes you might not even need to read a paragraph at all. Maybe there's no question about that paragraph. Don't read it. Okay. Too often times kids read and read and read and read and read and read, and they don't get to the question quick enough. Okay. Because again, you're going to read question 1 and you're going to have to read again. Okay. So we don't need to read multiple times just to answer one question. Okay, so we got to be smart about what we read and how much we read and how fast we read. Okay? All right, so those are very generic statements. We are going to get future, future 3-step methods. So keep in mind, once you answer all the easy questions, you will have the information to help you answer the harder question. Okay, because you've read it. So answering number 1, you're going to read the paragraph that might help you answer number 2. Okay, or number 2, reading that paragraph might help you answer number 3. So by reading as you answer a question, you're going to get more information to help you on future questions. So I do like that blue box that's on there. Okay. All right, so very first thing we're going to do is some quick practice. And this is a little activity that is on your Canvas or your, it's on Canvas. Your teacher is going to open up this quick Google form here. We are going to ask you 6 questions, and we want you to do the 3-step method. Read the intro, look for the easy, and then go for the hard. Again, the easy questions are going to say stuff like, according to table 1, according to the introduction. Okay, it's going to be really simple 1-item questions. Okay, so we're going to give you 6 minutes to answer 6 questions. That's not a lot of time. So I'm going to ask you to pop it up, and then we're going to start the timer and then take it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pause the video, and you're going to get 6 seconds to start working on that activity. 6 minutes, sorry. Right, pop it up, start taking it. All right, so 6 minutes have gone by. Again, I hope you paused it. 6 minutes have gone by. And now in class, in live, we will talk about the answers. We'll talk about what you did. But for this video, I'm not going to give you the answers. So you have to kind of do it yourself. If you want to know the answers and stuff, A, you can look at your Google form. It'll tell you what you got wrong. And B, you can ask your teacher for the actual answers. But again, your teachers will do that in class with you. Okay, so I'm not going to give you the answers. Otherwise, you'll have all the answers for your activity. Okay. All right, so read what you need. Again, you know that most of the answers in question for some passages without reading the text at all. Okay, there you can do that. Most questions can be answered directly from a graph or a table or 1 or 2 sentences. You don't need to read everything. Again, this is a timed test, and you need to act like it's a timed test. Okay. All right, let's take some notes on the digital worksheet here. So complete the read what you need. We're going to do a little activity with that. Okay. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is read the first paragraph of the text and notice how many questions make reference to the diagram, the figures. Okay. Only the complex or harder question will require you to read more. So we want you to look at each question for passage number 3, I think it was, or 4. I don't know. One of those passages, we're going to ask you to look at each question, and I want you to tell me which question or what did you need to read in order to answer that question. So for example, question number 23, you didn't need to read anything except for table number 1. Okay. So look at question number 24. What did you need to read in order to answer question 24? Okay, so go look at it. Look at your practice ACT. Did you need to read the introduction? Did you need to read paragraph 3? Did you need to read paragraph 10? What did you need to read in order to answer question number 24? Again, take about 5 minutes to do this quick little activity. Again, provide your answers on your digital worksheet. Okay, so hopefully you completed that activity. And again, you should follow the video if you haven't completed that activity yet. In class, we will go over the answers of those 5 questions there, what you needed. But the idea is for all 5 of those questions, you didn't need to read very much. Okay, so if you wasted time reading everything, you might miss a question in the future because you ran out of time. Okay, so again, the idea, the practice is we don't need to read everything. Okay, only read what you need to read. Okay. All right, so let's review step number 2. Again, we can take some notes here. So, in order to find easy question, that's the first step, right? Find easy question. Look for the following. Look for the title of an experiment. Look for the viewpoint, the table, or the figure. So look at the picture. Is it figure 1? Is it figure 2? Is it figure 5? Okay, we need to know which figure number is so that when we see a question, it says, according to figure 2, boom, I saw figure 2. It's right there. Okay, so find the title to the experiment or viewpoints. Okay, and then find words that say stuff like according to the passage, according to table 1, according to table 2, according to scientist 1. Okay, a lot of questions are going to say that. Okay, and again, if they're easy, if it says according to one thing, that's all you got to look at. Just look at table 1. That's all you have to look at if it says according to table 1. Don't look at anything else. Okay. All right, so let's take some notes. So we're going to complete the finding easy one. So again, this is going to be another practice on there. And I'm going to ask you to label, to identify what are the easy questions. So again, read the first paragraph of the text. Okay, the introduction, step number 1. Notice certain words that can indicate the relative ease of a question. Okay, remember that easy question, the words just as much as the hard question. Okay, they should be faster and quicker. Okay, you don't need to answer the questions in order. That's a really important skill. Question 1 might be the hardest question on the entire ACT. And if you spend 5 minutes on question number 1, you might have wasted time for later easy ones. Okay. So again, you don't have to order them. You don't have to do them in order. You can put a little mark on your test that says, hey, I need to go back and look at number 1 later. Number 1 was a hard one. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to go look for an easy one. Okay. Again, if you have time at the end of the test, go back to number 1. Okay. On the digital ACT, you can easily do that. All right. So every passage has an easy question, and they're typically mixed around. They tend to be the first couple of questions on each passage. Okay. However, many students tend to run out of time on the test and they don't even get to the last question. So, if you look at passage 5 or 6 and 7 on the practice test, how many easy questions would they have missed if they ran out of time on passage 6 and 7? Probably 4 or 5 easy questions if they ran out of time. Again, that's 4 or 5 points that you could have gotten on the ACT. If you got an 18, it could have been a 23 if you didn't run out of time. If you got a 30, maybe it could have been higher than that. It could have been a 32, 33. And you got to use your time wisely. All right, you don't have to answer the questions in order. The easy question works same out as the hard question. Come back to the hard question later if time exists. You can bookmark your question on the digital ACT. If it's a paper ACT, right, circle it. Say, hey, come back to number 1. Come back to number 5 later. Okay, and then make sure you come back to it. Okay, but again, don't run out of time because you're focusing all your time on hard question. All right, now this is guided practice here. Your teacher is actually going to go through this material with you. So we're going to ask you to kind of remind us what we've learned so far. We are going to model some expert test-taking strategies for step number 3. So your teacher is going to do that with you, okay, and kind of show you your thought processes by thinking aloud, okay. Now, you're not allowed to talk on the ACT out loud, but for practice, talk out loud. Go say it. Say those words. I want to read the introduction. I want to find easy question. That looks like an easy question. Talk out loud. Think about stuff, okay? All right, then I want you to do the systematic approach on question number 2. record your ideas based on what you thought aloud. We want everybody to participate through this thought experiment. We want everybody to talk out during this. Okay. And again, provide your thoughts and your answers on your digital worksheet for today's lesson. Okay. All right. So on that guided practice, again, your teacher will go over question number 1. They'll actually show you how they went about solving that question. And then we will go over question number 2 together. So, okay. All right, now shared practice. Now, this is an activity I would like for you guys to work together in groups of 3 or 4, maybe, or even partners, and where you're actually going to talk to each other about how you would solve and practice using a 3-step method. So again, you're going to get 6 or 7 questions, and then I think you're going to get 5 or 6 questions, and we want you to talk out loud with each other. Okay, and if your partner is not talking out loud and helping you out, tell the teacher. Okay, that is the expectation for this activity, is that you guys are talking out loud. So say things like, hey, let's read the introduction real quick. Let's look for the easy question. Which question would be hard? Which question would be easy? And then try to answer the questions themselves. Okay, so again, that is another Google form that your teacher is going to unlock for you and want you guys to work together on that activity. So again, we're going to put an 8-minute timer for this video. You can pause it and then go from there. So you can pause the video here. All right, time's up on a shared practice. Right, hopefully you paused it and you were able to kind of complete the activity in the 8 minutes. Again, we were practicing time. Okay, did you run out of time? Did you run out of time on hard ones or easy ones? Practice. Practice running out of time on the hard ones. Answer all the easy questions. Okay, maybe the last question was the easiest of them all. Okay, so make sure you don't have to go in order. You don't have to answer them in perfect order. Okay. All right. Now in class, your teacher will go over the answers with you. Okay. I'm not going to go over them with you now because you have the answers. And so during class time, your teacher will actually give you the answers for that shared practice and talk about how is it easy, is it hard, what did you need to look for? Okay. How much did you read? Did you read everything? Or did you read only what you needed to read? All right. All right. So day 1, cap wrap. What I'd like for you to do is to write a little letter to your science teacher, whoever that is, telling him or her your thoughts about the ACT science test. And in that letter, in a couple paragraphs, be sure to say things like, what areas you think you're strong at, especially with these strategies, the reading, the process elimination, finding easy ones, finding hard ones. Where do you think you need to work on for the ACT, for the cert? What do you think you can do to get ready for the test? And how do you think your teacher can help you get ready for the test? Okay, so that's going to be the last little wrap up for the day 1, cap wrap. If you guys have any other questions or concerns, please be talking to your classmates and to your teachers. Again, I did not go over all the answers with you on purpose. So your teacher and your class will actually kind of talk about the answers and discuss, how did you get that? How did you do that? All right. So as always, if you guys have questions, make sure you ask your science teachers. You can also come find me at Ignite, and I'll help you out as well. All right. Have a great day.